Director of National Sales at Dish Media, and Dish Media specializes in data-driven television solutions for advertisers. We're a leader in the addressable advertising space, and we helped launch that 8 years ago, and we've developed a very unique expertise in that area. And when we execute addressable, we typically execute it and run it across both Dish and Sling TV. We own and operate Sling TV, and we have a best-in-class OTT programmatic solution for the marketplace as well. Happy to speak to anyone on those fronts offline. But enough about me. I am thrilled to be joined by Jesse today. He works at Disney Streaming. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and Jesse will take it away.
Thanks, Jim. So Jesse Laskaris, I lead the performance marketing operations and technology team. That's quite the mouthful for Disney Streaming. That's Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, as well as some of the new global products, Star and Star Plus. We're focused on acquisition and overall growth of our portfolio of products. My team specifically supports our in-house media buying and creative teams with technology, processes, and data to make everything run smoothly and hit our goals.
Terrific. Yeah, we're going to get into a number of subjects today. iOS 14, Google, and preparing for a cookieless world. A number of areas and the impact they're having on the marketplace as well as Disney. But I'd like to start first with just getting into a little bit more of your team structure. You just kind of gave us a little bit of an overview of that. But so you're overseeing a number of areas, a number of lines of business. But why don't we start with how have you seen the overall digital marketplace, kind of change, and how has that affected your team? And when we start with that.
Yeah. So the structure of my team, again, we're kind of a service layer that sits underneath all of our different channels, creative, analytics, and kind of like all the frontline teams. Our focus areas are, audiences, so strategy, working with our data teams, working with data platform partners and DMPs to execute all of our campaigns globally. One of the others is just overall ad tech, both work at third parties out, the DSPs, social platforms, but also what our internal product teams can build for us as well. And then, kind of the boring back of the house stuff, but more traditional operations, legal, privacy, risk assessment, security, requirements gathering. When you kind of bring all of those together, we kind of do look at technology and data end to end from both, the use cases and business strategies that we're trying to execute, the partner ecosystem that we need to bring in to help us do that, contracts, privacy reviews, what it means from an overall business impact perspective, and then execution and delivery, either 100% on my team or in partnership with our channel or analytics teams, or any of our stakeholders. And so we kind of do see what exists kind of underneath and kind of support, bring things in and execution.
Yeah, I mean you're the backbone, to make sure the trains are running on time. Of course. And so, so in terms of OTT, you guys are part of because it's social, there's search, there's OTT. How have you seen OTT develop? Obviously, there was an acceleration. Eyeballs were going there, ad dollars were going there before COVID, but there was acceleration of that in 2020, obviously. Just give us a little bit of your opinion on that and perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously we're focused on kind of digital and addressable channels overall. When we look at our full media plan, you hit on programmatic, social, search, and then kind of broader CTV and OTT. And so we're in a unique position because we work very closely to ensure that our services are preloaded on a lot of the operating systems of providers that offer OTT-like services. But then, we're also a sophisticated media organization where we do want to be able to, buy more programmatically. And to your point, like, where are the eyeballs? And for us, it's where are people going to engage with our products and services? And that's really kind of the convergence of those types of players on smart TVs or other connected devices that, one, people can engage with our products and more likely will convert, given we're focused on acquisition, just the experience is so much better. We hope that there's a much greater likelihood to convert on the device that they would actually view. So you have a nice big smart TV hanging on your wall versus on your phone. It's a fundamentally different experience. But it has
100%.
changed. Again, eyeballs are there, as well as the data and capabilities necessary for an advertiser to engage with those types of platforms.
Great. That's great perspective. And then in terms of social, has that evolved? Has that changed from, you've been there about a year or so has that evolved over the...
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's, I'm not certainly not bringing up anything new, but obviously with all the walled gardens and social providers, there's, in my opinion, things are kind of condensing a little bit more. There's a lot greater view on privacy, both in terms of, let's say what the government is mandating, but also what, Apple and others are forcing upon us. And so that is, while there's a great opportunity, more people are obviously engaging on social platforms. It's a great place to deliver ads, deliver experiences, and hopefully convert. There's a lot more restrictions that we now have to navigate successfully to kind of either keep on par with what we've been doing traditionally, or figure out a new operating model in general. But it's more so with Facebook than anyone else. But
Sure, and we'll get to Google. We'll get to Google and cookieless, kind of reality that we're all kind of heading towards. But let's start with iOS 14 and the impact that that's had on broader marketplace, if you like, and certainly your world.
Yeah, I mean, this is something, if you kind of, there's plenty of those kind of timeline slides that exist, and various changes, ITP, last year, and not, most of them have, in my opinion, at least, have not had too big of an impact on the way we operate from an advertising perspective. I think with iOS 14, it's pretty different at this, and at least what's expected to come out and what the impact that both is being talked about in the marketplace, but also based off of some of the assessments that we've done, there are kind of critical areas that we think will have an impact, whether it be targeting or analytics or, just engagement with our apps on iOS. And so, I mean, I think the greater good that Apple, me as a consumer loves what Apple's doing. I don't want apps and developers and others sharing my data for things that I don't want to do. As a marketer, it's a big pain in the butt. And so, there's the fine balancing act of the two. And so, for us, we are kind of going through a pretty major impact assessment. We're breaking down, I'll just say, our media supply chain, from strategy and planning to building and distributing audiences to how we use third-party or in-platform data, how we analyze and measure and attribute success, and really looking, at every link of that chain to understand what it means and what are we going to have to potentially do differently. And so, that's been a process. It's cross-functional, from legal and privacy and compliance to our marketing teams, to our data teams, to, kind of program and project management and product, and really it's been a pretty interesting cross-functional endeavor that we've kind of taken to look at what it means for Disney streaming services and our, paid media efforts. And, for good or for bad, some things we've been able to kind of check off and say, we're actually good. In other cases, we are going to be seeing, and impact, and obviously we're trying to figure out what we can do to ensure that those, technical or data impacts do not impact our business. So it's a fine balancing act.
Sure. I'm sure it's, it's testing, evaluating, and give us
Absolutely.
a little bit on that.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's take, our, how we, focus on audiences as an example. We've looked at, and obviously we're global, so there are kind of country and region specific nuances that we have. But just looking at the U.S., for example, we are, essentially evaluating the data that we have, the data that we store, TMPs, our DMP platform ecosystem, how we send data, how do we capture consent, and really looking at data sources and our media strategy and how we use it, and are realizing that we're more likely than not going to have to operate very much like our European counterparts within GDPR, as an example. And that's, based off of our interpretation of what's coming out, as well as, our legal and compliance teams are telling us, as well as in terms of working with our, media partners in terms of how we operate their tools for activation. And so, I'm envisioning a lot of, similar impacts and changes in terms of audience size and, addressability and reach to what we, felt during GDPR, as an example. Similarly, on analytics, by implementing the SK Ad network, the way we do measurement, and we do MTA, there is a major impact in terms of the granularity that we would normally see, and we're trying to mobilize. And what does that mean for how we report, attribute, budget, given the loss of that granularity?
Yeah.
So not all
Yeah.
firm answers yet, but that's, to your point, we kind of know what it is. We now have to kind of test into new areas to figure out how to mitigate some of these changes.
Yeah, and just with capabilities impact, sometimes something that's impacted, it's like, I didn't really want that, or I didn't use that. That wasn't a big priority. But other things that are impacted, that's not gonna work. So I'm sure there's some things you'll miss and some things you'll miss more than others. But are there any insight on that?
I mean, like I said, we're, it's only a couple of weeks away, so, unfortunately, but, we are still in kind of the discovery phase. And even though we kind of know where we want to get to for certain areas more than others, we do not have a full POV. And I think most brands are probably in similar boats, given a lot of the feedback and information that, both Apple as well as media partners have put out there to navigate this. But it's kind of, a lot, there are some things that I think are very clear, but there's a huge amount of gray area in the middle that, we're going to have to figure out what to do around.
Sure. Okay, let's, why don't we, I don't know if there's anything else on iOS 14 you want to share?
No, I think that's pretty
cool. I think if we toggle over to, just talk about, the changes, again, we got a little time to prepare, a little more time, but with, with cookies going away and, so, overall, what is your, and you have some time to prepare, but what kind of some of your bigger concerns there, or what are you, where are your team kind of looking to do, adapt? I'm sure there's testing going on there as well, and et cetera. Love to hear your point of view on that.
Yeah, I mean, the timing was, right in the middle of a lot of craziness, obviously, but, our approach right now, at least, is obviously we have to get through the iOS 14 change and then quickly pivot to reacting to Google, like most big brands, the Google stack and the Google ecosystem plays a major role in our overall advertising and analytics, whether it be using DV360, all search tools, PCM, Google Cloud if you use it. And so it's quite, and then obviously everything on the pub side as well. So, we're going to take a lot of the way that we've thought about the impact to kind of our core use cases with Apple, and we'll now apply that to Google. And so, we have a lot more time. I mean, I think most of us, Google has put a lot of these types of things out there, and it's changed drastically over time. So my point of view is, we kind of have a loose date, at some point next year that something is going to happen. I don't believe what has been put out into the marketplace now will be exactly what it looks like in a year. That being said, we still do have to do our due diligence. As we think about, the privacy sandbox, flocks, and things like that. To my point before, if we look at audiences, again, like flocks drastically changes how we target. If you're used to doing kind of like precision marketing, very unique audiences, and obviously like the setup from a targeting perspective, Fox drastically changed that. If I want to build an audience that, based off of, you watched this program, you watch WandaVision or Mandalorian for us, if that's going to be kind of blended by Google, my accuracy is going to go down the toilet, and I'm going to have to assume that performance will as well. So we're going to have to figure out how to navigate that. I think even though having great first party data, which I feel we do, it helps. It could still have a negative impact once it gets out into the ecosystem, if it starts to get modeled or didn't used to, and things like that. And then on the analytics side, we're used to my point before, like we're doing MTA, we're talking about, how do the data feeds and the information that we use for measurement and reporting purposes, what is that going to look like? Do we completely need to rebuild our analytics ecosystem? If we do, thank goodness we have a year to figure that out. If we don't, and it's more of like small mitigations here and there, it still stinks, but it's more manageable and reasonable. But like I said, we're going to look at the way we operate today. We're going to look at what's been put into the marketplace now and start prepping. I'm going to assume it's going to change over time, and we'll be nimble enough to navigate that.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. There's some questions coming in, but before we get into that, I want to just kind of pivot to maybe some leadership. You've got an awesome background, LiveRamp, Samsung, Verizon, American Express, but I think this is the first time you ever onboarded remotely. And that's a whole new experience, not as an individual contributor, but particularly when you're managing people. And take us back to last March. You joined Disney. You're coming. What was that experience like?
Yeah, Tuesday was actually my 1 year mark, so it's got a quite timely. So it was weird. I had interviewed in person. So went into the office, met my boss. We were building out. I was the first hire for this new team, and my job was to hire people. And obviously, this is before the COVID was a thing, but we had not really kind of locked down. Personally, no better time to get into streaming, but separate conversation. But it was weird. The Friday before my first day, I thought I'd be going into the office. I get a call from HR. Actually, we're shipping you your laptop, and you have a call with IT at 9 a.m. to be able to access it, and then we'll figure it all out after that. So super weird, super interesting though. I think a lot of what you would take for granted as part of being in the office and onboarding appropriately, you have to add, a month on that would maybe take a week normally. I've had to build out a team. I've been lucky that we have been able to hire, but it's very strange. I've never met in person anyone that I've actually reports into me. It's very strange. And for the type of work that we do, in a non-COVID world, it's quite collaborative. It's the type of thing that you'd get into a conference room and whiteboard a bunch of stuff out. Without being able to do that, I find it very difficult to do remotely, doing like true, team-wide collaboration, through Zoom. The tools don't really work. It's a little wonky. And I think unfortunately, it's a new way of working. Hopefully, one that we can go back to normal eventually, but it's certainly challenging and very strange overall, both as being a new hire as well as being a leader and bringing more people onto the team.
Yeah, yeah, we're all adapting that, but just starting remotely must have been it definitely is a unique experience to say the least. So why don't we jump into some of the questions? There's a number of them that are coming in. How are you measuring ROI in your media investments? How is it evolving?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a in-house MTA solution. It's been built over the past couple of years, even before I joined, and so we've built the capability, built out the processes, both our channel teams, our budget and planning teams, what executives look at, and have integrated that. How is it changing? Obviously, one is very hard to maintain with so many technical changes. Again, you build data feeds, that in some cases the data isn't flowing as well. And so we're in this constant, I don't want to call it a spin, but just, a constant state of ensuring that business as usual can still run with the changes happening. So I'd say it's constant iteration and constant oversight to ensure that the way we operate, but it is MTA with using an in-house tool.
Excellent. All right, next question. What roles do digital video and OTT play in your media mix? How are you thinking about cross-channel campaigns with consumption across screens increasing?
So video plays a role. I mean, obviously, again, we have, when it comes to connected devices in general, we usually, buy either as part of a partnership with the OEM or through kind of more programmatic purchasing, unique video inventory depending on what the offerings are, and then within social, our broader social, like video plays a a critical role in that. But it's a fine balance between static assets as well. We have so many titles, we have so many products. There's localization that needs to happen globally. That it's a fine balance between what's coming through our studios down to our in-house creative teams and what can really be produced and put out there. In terms of cross-channel, I mean, we try to where it's technically possible. Not all channels really integrate well, and so I think between some of the more traditional digital channels, we try to execute that way. We set up campaigns where possible. We link and optimize appropriately, but unfortunately, it's not a perfect science, just given some of the constraints of the different channels that we operate within.
Good stuff. So next question here is, what innovations and technologies are you utilizing to execute your strategies?
I mean, we have, when I think of our tech stack, it's a good blend of kind of build versus buy. And I think, there's a couple, kind of key areas where those two things really kind of come together. So, I've mentioned audiences quite a bit. We do have kind of an in-house segmentation tool, but then we still leverage, LiveRamp as well as other technologies to kind of get it out into the ecosystem. I mentioned our in-house MTA tool, which I think is, it's kind of a blend of some best-in-class, external tools with, modified to accommodate our in-house needs. And then, we're really trying to figure out are there custom algorithms to help us understand, likelihood to convert or likelihood to engage, as well as just looking across the broader Disney ecosystem. There's such a wealth of really interesting and innovative technology, data, creative, that, it's great. Disney streaming is still kind of a baby within, the Disney breadth of brands. And so obviously a lot of, we do try to lead our own way, but it's great that we can rely on some of the Disney mothership to help us innovate on top of that.
Good stuff. Here's one. What do you wish you were doing more of, and what's preventing you from getting there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just started on this journey, but we're really eager and excited to start doing more DCO. If to my point earlier, the amount of new content that we have launching, we have 10 new Star Wars series, I think 10 more Marvel. There's a bunch of Pixar. We're launching in new countries, and then we're going to have new streaming products in certain countries. Just the way we operate today is just not scalable without some, aspects of DCO built into the way we operate, whether it's helping our creative team, dynamically assemble ads, to supporting our ad ops and channel teams in terms of trafficking. And then, how can we get smarter around who to deliver ads to? And so, for us, that's something where is absolutely on our kind of strategic roadmaps for this year. The reality of what's holding us back is, we're just been so heads down with launching things, and so there's time, but then there's also this does fundamentally change the way we operate. And so it's less of a technology thing and more of the internal change management necessary for teams to think differently and operate differently, and just trying to find the right time to make those changes.
Good stuff. Great. All right. Here's another question. Are you prioritizing changes in the use of technology to accelerate your agility and ability to respond to consumer behavior?
Yeah, I mean, DCO is a component, and I'm just using the acronym because it means so many things underneath it. But another one is, again, a broad term, but I'll go into more details. We are truly thinking about ways to automate the thing, both the tasks that our teams do, right? Across all those channels, creative, approvals, if you think about everything that goes into launching a campaign. We are thinking about, we're looking at the way we operate today, and, trying to figure out, bring on new, whether it's people, process, or technology, figuring out ways to get smarter, both in terms of consumer engagement, but also what's happening in the back end in terms of how we operate to react to that. There's a lot of things that we're just not nimble enough right now to react, on a turn of a dime. Obviously, I think every brand wants to be able to do that, but we're prioritizing, figure out how we can. And so that's another bigger initiative that kicked off for us this year. But we do envision that a good amount of technology will need to be brought in to help us do that.
Excellent. Here's one that may you may still be formulating your answer on this one, but what would you say the new normal will be for your marketing programs?
It's an interesting one. I mean, I think, again, I always hate saying this, but like we've been very lucky the past year. There's no better time to be in streaming. I think for us in general, for Disney streaming, Disney Plus, and there's going to be, obviously, as people are not stuck at home, and we are expecting a change in consumption, as well as how and where and when people are engaging, both with our advertising and marketing, but also with our service. And so we are trying to figure out what do the new dynamics look like, around those things. At an industry perspective, and I hit on some of these points earlier, the new normal is going to be very different than the current state, with some of these changes. I believe that there will be kind of more consolidation within data and ad tech. And I think, precision marketing is going to have to get a little bit more broad, for both, in some cases, the right reasons, consumer privacy, but also in some cases for the wrong reasons, ad tech consolidation. There's, in some cases, the right forcing hand, and then there's other cases where there's not. And so I think that will also impact what the new normal will be, irrespective of COVID and everything going on.
Great. And here's a question: because again, some people the sky's falling almost, but like here's an interesting: how do we continue to focus on the silver linings of the past year? How do we continue to build on the momentum we've started? Because we've pivoted as an industry, and there are still headwinds. And then how do we continue to put the consumer and our employees at the center of everything we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, our focus always has been obviously getting people to enjoy and love our content, and obviously like Disney the brand and the overall again, that's kind of built in for many of us already, and obviously layering on more relevant things for consumers to continue to enjoy engaging with our brand is absolutely critical. And so it's not just acquiring them, but keeping them happy. And I think there's so many ways that we can go about doing that. I think, when it comes to just your, marketing in general, it's understanding behavior, consumer behavior, and that can be done, digitally and, through kind of like the broader digital touch points. That could be through more traditional research. And obviously there's a lot of things, ways of balancing those two types. But I think it's really about bringing those two things together, both in terms of having a product that, consumers want to engage with and, picking up on the signals that they give off, good or bad, to make sure that you can kind of modify, but also, take into account, again, the research or the insights that you can prior to engaging them to make it more relevant.
Great. So we have about 2 minutes left. There's a question here and then this might just dovetail into a question I have for you, which is what is top of mind as you prepare for the back half of 2021?
Yeah. I mean, everything I hit on before, obviously, like we want to make sure that we are compliant, adhering to everything that we have to as a brand and as an advertiser. But also like, that's not the fun, like personally, like I don't think anybody enjoys having to do this stuff. So it's really about balance, making sure you're good on that front, but also figuring out the right types of marketing, getting behind this type of thing. Where do we want to get to? So I'm kicking off long-term planning now, which is more of like a year out, and trying to figure out the right building blocks, to handle, privacy and compliance, but also the right type of ad tech, data strategy, and just, making things easier for our marketers to operate in a global capacity.
Great. Thanks for that. And then I know, Izzy, we're down to it, but just real quick, any predictions for the broader industry, in the whether it be 21 or 22?
Yeah, I mean, I think I personally believe that there will be more consolidation, whether it be smaller players getting bought up. There's obviously, just reading an article yesterday, more going public. I'm not sure, if they should or not, but they are. And I think that will fundamentally change some of the offerings. I think there are a lot of small players that can be more nimble in working with a brand versus, your big, huge enterprise players. And, we're going to lose some of that flexibility as more companies go public or as they get acquired. And so I think, navigating that, looking at your partner ecosystem and ensuring they give you the things that you need. But I do expect more consolidation and kind of fundamental changes in terms of the products that are being put out there.
Terrific. Well, this has been great. I think we are at our close, but I really enjoyed it. Great insight, Jesse, and good luck to you the rest of the year, and as you as well, Izzy.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks so much, Jim and Jesse. Super interesting to hear about how you're dealing with the various iOS changes, and as well as your outlook on a cookieless future and just how streaming has evolved. So quick side note, for those of you who have not seen WandaVision yet, I highly recommend. Absolutely loved it.
It is great.
Yeah, it's
Falcon
really
Winter
good.
Soldier is premiering Friday. Quick plug.
Ooh,
So.
Good shout out.
More Marvel. More Marvel.
Marvel. Love it. Well, thank you both for your time and your conversation today.